The moment Barron Trump silenced an entire ballroom. Nobody expected him to steal the spotlight. The chandeliers cast a golden glow over the elegantly dressed crowd, conversations humming through the air like a well-rehearsed symphony. Business moguls, Hollywood elites, and high-profile journalists sipped champagne, their laughter mingling with the soft notes of a string quartet. It was a night of power, influence, and spectacle, an annual charity gala meant to dazzle. And then, with a single sentence, the room turned to ice. All eyes darted toward him. Barron Trump. He hadn't asked for attention. He hadn't stepped into the spotlight. But now, every whisper, every gaze, every unspoken thought in the ballroom was directed at him. And what he did next, no one saw coming. Barron had never been one for public spectacle. While the world dissected his family's every move, he remained in the background, silent, observant, unreadable. Tonight was no different. He sat at a table tucked near the back, a quiet observer in a sea of power players. At 18, his towering frame made him noticeable, but it was his stillness that set him apart. He was a shadow in a room of flashing lights, but the night was about to take a sharp turn. The keynote speaker, a renowned journalist known for their biting wit, stepped onto the stage. The applause was polite, but edged with anticipation. Everyone knew their reputation. They didn't just give speeches, they performed. And their performances always had a target. Tonight, that target was closer than anyone expected. The journalist began lightheartedly, cracking jokes about the city's impossible traffic and a previous gala's champagne disaster. The crowd chuckled, the tension easing. But then, with a smirk that signaled something sharper ahead, they pivoted. "And of course," they said, pausing for effect, "we can't forget his legacy. The next generation." The words sliced through the air like a blade. Everyone knew what was coming. "Imagine growing up in a golden tower," the journalist continued, their tone laced with amusement. "Surrounded by marble, while your dad is out there tweeting about world leaders like it's an episode of reality TV. That must have been character building, huh?" A few chuckles. Some hesitant, some forced. But most of the room? Silent. Because Barron Trump was right there. He didn't move. Didn't blink. He sat perfectly still, his expression unreadable. The journalist, perhaps realizing they had just turned a glitzy gala into something far more dangerous, hesitated. They had expected laughter, nods of agreement, maybe even a dismissive shrug from Barron himself. But the silence was suffocating. And then, in a moment no one could have predicted, Barron did something that sent a ripple through the entire ballroom. He stood. The soft scrape of his chair against the floor was the only sound in the stunned silence. At just over 6 feet tall, he was an imposing figure. But it wasn't his height that commanded attention. It was the air around him. He was calm, composed, and somehow, without uttering a word, he had taken complete control of the room. He walked forward, each step measured, his expression unreadable. The journalist stiffened. The audience held its breath. Was he about to fire back? Call them out? Walk away? None of the above. He stopped near the stage, locked eyes with the journalist, and spoke. "Thank you for your insight." The words were smooth, deliberate. But they weren't what anyone expected. There was no sarcasm, no bitterness. Just control. "I've grown up watching people make assumptions about me," he continued, his voice steady. "About my family, about my life. It's almost become a game to some, a way to fill in the blanks when they don't have the full story." The journalist swallowed. "I get it," Barron said. "We're public figures. It comes with the territory." The room was deathly quiet. "But there's something people often forget," he went on, his voice carrying not just across the room, but into the minds of every person listening. "Behind every headline, every joke, every punchline, there's a human being, someone with their own struggles, their own dreams, their own story." He let the words settle. "You may think you know me because of my last name," he said, his blue eyes locked onto the journalist. "But you don't. Not really. The journalist's confident facade had vanished. What I've learned, Barron continued, is that respect shouldn't have to be earned. It should be given freely, especially when you don't know someone's full story. A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. We live in a time where it's easy to tear people down, Barron said. Words have power. They can wound, or they can heal. They can divide, or they can unite. He turned slightly, addressing not just the journalist, but everyone. And I think we could all use a little more of the latter. Silence, and then applause. Soft at first, then louder, then thunderous. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet. The journalist stood frozen. The moment was no longer theirs. It belonged to him. But Barron? He didn't bask in the applause. He didn't smirk or revel in the attention. He simply gave a polite nod and returned to his seat. The next morning, social media exploded. Clips of Barron's response flooded Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Barron Trump just schooled an entire ballroom on class. No matter your politics, you have to respect what he did tonight. Even mainstream media couldn't ignore it. Headlines dissected the moment from every angle. Some praised Barron's grace. Others questioned the journalist's judgment. The journalist? They issued a public statement. Comedy and commentary are powerful tools, but they must be wielded responsibly. Last night, I crossed a line. I apologized to Barron Trump. But the damage had already been done. Or rather, the lesson had already been taught. Because while the world moved on, something lingered from that night. A reminder that even in the face of public scrutiny, mockery, and expectation, dignity is a choice. And sometimes, the most powerful response is calm, quiet, undeniable strength. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life moments that challenge, inspire, and remind us of the power of words. Let's keep the conversation going.